Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know I just put the announcement out yesterday for this broadcast, so some people may not be able to join, but the rebroadcast will always be available. And obviously there may be some people joining later, but I'm going to go ahead and get started just to make sure we have get the full content out here. First, I'd like to welcome all of you to tonight's episode, which is my premiere live episode from Fog to Faith. Okay, let's try this again. From Fog to Fierce by Faith. And I'm going to be talking about how to overcome menopausal brain fog. And where this topic came from, maybe a month ago, I did some live market research. And then in addition to that, I did some posting across several of the menopause websites and just asked, what are some of your most pressing menopausal symptoms? And overwhelmingly, the response was menopausal brain fog. I also tried to engage across several menopause websites on Facebook and YouTube and listen to things. And again, I hear a lot of women who are really struggling with this. And it can be serious. And because you don't really know what's going on, it can be scary. And you may feel alone in this struggle. So again, I just wanted to present that topic for our very first premiere episode. And also, I'm going to try and keep up with your comments if anyone joins. If no one joins, this will be easy peasy. I'll just breeze through it. And again, you can come back and listen to the rebroadcast. But I'm told that there may be a little bit of a latency delay on YouTube. So hopefully not. It's telling me that I do have an excellent connection. So hopefully that's true. I did get a message about bit rate. So hopefully there won't be any buffering and it'll be smooth for you. On Facebook, everything should be moving along smoothly. So hopefully you'll be able to, again, see me without any interruptions or glitches. Okay. So I think first let's talk about the title, From Fog to Fierce by Faith. This came to me because really this whole MenoThrive series, the whole MenoThrive brand is really my experience. And I think this is a good place just to interject that I am a born again, faith-filled Christian believer. And I would be remiss to share my journey without interjecting that role that faith played in my overcoming a lot of the toughest moments, especially the brain fog. Some of you may have seen my a video I did maybe 2 months ago, just talking about my journey. I talked about how I dealt with depression, suicidal ideations, anxiety, and the list just goes on and on and on. But tonight we're going to be focusing on brain fog, and that was really one of the symptoms that I first experienced that really lit a fire under me to find a remedy, because I am one of those people. I am going to find a way. I want to live long, but I also want to live a healthy and productive life, and I want my quality of life to be good. So, I'm really starting to get back, I guess, into healthier eating than I was. And also, just making sure I'm doing all my preventive measures and getting all my checkups and mammograms. But at the same time, maybe about in my 40s, I started to experience some really interesting symptoms that I didn't recognize were menopause at that time. So before I move any further, who am I? I'm Kimberly Court. I'm the owner and founder of the MenoThrive brand. Again, I started this to empower and educate women through awareness. So the more you know, the more you can do about it. A lot of my journey has really just been doing a lot of research and just to ensure again that, I do live long and I do enjoy those years. And one of the things that I'm really thriving is standing on the Word of God in Haggai 2:9, which says that basically, to sum it up, our latter years were meant to be greater than our former years. And for a lot of us, that's just not our experience, especially women, as you're getting into their mid to late 30s and you're starting to get into that perimenopausal phase. Research has shown that some of the worst perimenopausal symptoms hit somewhere between 47 and 52. So that's no fun. And then on average, women hit menopause at about 51. My doctor has told me there really isn't a difference between menopause and postmenopause. It's really the same thing. Once you're in menopause, you're there. And basically that is marked after a year of not having a cycle. So, if you do, something breaks through, you got to start that clock again. So for me, that was about age 52. At 53, hey, I was, pretty much in full swing, menopause, postmenopause. And again, just experiencing a lot of things that a lot of women right now may not understand are happening to their bodies. So again, just picking up where I left off before, just want to give my testimony here because I definitely couldn't have made it through a lot of what I had to deal with without my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and the guidance of the Holy Spirit, which really helped guide me on this mission to help other women through this. And again, just to interject another scripture in there, Proverbs 3:27 tells us that we are not to withhold good from others when it's in our power to share things. So that's me standing on that and just sharing my experiences to hopefully help someone avoid a lot of what I had to go through. Just also want to say I respect everyone's right to believe as they wish, and I just ask that you pay me that same respect as a Christian, or if you're not comfortable, opt out. My feelings won't be hurt at all. But much of my content is faith-based, and it also contains solid practical remedies, both natural, holistic, and traditional remedies that I've either tried myself or researched but didn't really feel was for me. Next, I want to paraphrase something that Leonard Ravenhill, who was a British Christian evangelist back in the 50s, said. He said that a man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with an argument. So let me say that again. A man with experience is never at the mercy of a man with an argument. Well, I'm going to paraphrase that and say a woman with an experience is never at the mercy of a woman with an argument. I am that woman with an experience. And here's my disclaimer. I just want to say this up front. I am not a medical professional, nor am I medically certified in, being a menopause expert. I'm not a medically certified menopause expert. But I do consider myself to be an experience-based menopause survivor, I guess. I do, I am an expert in that regard because what I have to share is based on almost 25 years in the menopause space. Again, right now I'm considered to be in postmenopause, so I have gone through, I've basically been where a lot of you are now, and I've survived it. And so I do feel that I have a voice and I have something important to share. I personally started my menopause journey in my mid to late 30s. And my symptoms really peaked in my 40s, as I mentioned, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I think the first time that it was like a wake-up call that I was aging, because even now, mentally I feel about 19 years old. I don't feel old, and it took a while for my body to catch up with that. But I remember my eyesight was starting to blur a little, and I remember telling my doctor about it because I'm on top of everything, least little symptom, I want to know what's going on, not necessarily to medicate, but, first of all, to know what to focus, my prayers on. And she told me, to my dismay, that it's probably more a symptom of age than anything. Your eyesight's going to blur as you get older. And if I had been wearing pearls, I probably would have clutched them that day because I was like, how dare you? I'm not aging. I'm going to be young forever. But the reality is we are not going to be young forever. But the good news is if you are blessed enough to reach the age of perimenopause, you are blessed because life is a privilege denied to many. So a lot of women don't make it to that. And I know a lot of women who, did pass away before they reached that. So I know it doesn't seem like it some days and a lot of the things that you experience, but living to reach the age of menopause is a blessing. So I am grateful for that. And as I mentioned, probably one of the first symptoms that plagued me was brain fog. I had over 30 years of corporate professional experience. I was a project manager, I was a program manager, I was a portfolio manager. All three of those roles require a sharp mind, sharp focus for you to retain a lot of information. And that was never an issue. And then one day I noticed, I think I was on a conference call with about 100 people listening. And I just remember thinking, wow, I just lost my whole train of thought in mid-sentence. And it's a little embarrassing, but I was able to kind of pick up and keep going. I'm very good at that. I'm very good at making the best of a bad situation. And, I would just shift focus to another topic. But that did concern me a little. And at first it didn't really bother me because I thought, okay, maybe it's just a little lack of sleep. And that is one of the causes we'll be talking a little bit about a little bit later. But I discovered that this was starting to happen more and more frequently. And so that concerned me. And I thought, what is going on? I think a lot of people that, I've talked to and read about, they tend to start to think at some point, maybe I'm in early dementia. I just want to say up front, brain fog is common in menopause. And in a lot of cases, it does get better, especially as you move into the postmenopausal phase. And just, again, speaking as someone who's there, I can say that that is true, but I also do a lot of things to help with that. And again, I'm going to be sharing some of those remedies with you throughout this podcast. But again, I'm very familiar with the topic. I was also born to a perimenopausal woman. My mother was almost 46 years old when I was born. I'm also the youngest of 16 children, which is made up of 5 boys and 11 girls. 1 mother, 1 father, 16 single live births. And she was definitely a strong woman. She was definitely my shero when she was here. Obviously having, had me at such a late age, and with me being 57, she, has passed on. Both her and my father would be over 100, so they're gone, and I do miss them. But I have definitely experienced hormonal shifts firsthand, and I have experienced them secondhand, just being around so many women in my life. And again, didn't know what those things were at that time. I just made a thought, okay, so-and-so's having a bad day or something. But again, now having lived through it, I'm just like, wow, now I know. I have tried and researched a lot of different remedies myself, and I felt that my voice could make a difference in making someone's experience better. So again, that's why I'm here today. I will say this, and this is, no disrespect to my mom, but it wasn't always fun growing up with a woman who was at the peak of perimenopause. But now I can actually relate to her journey. And I can't even imagine, I know how hard that was for me, but I can't even imagine navigating peak perimenopause symptoms and raising a toddler. So, yeah, and as I mentioned, research shows that women are about between 47 and 52 at the peak of their worst symptoms. So my mother was navigating that and having her, not only dealing with her 16th child, but a toddler going through all of that. So again, my hat goes off to her a million times over. So, yeah, getting back to brain fog, I'm going to get into that in a second. But one day I just had enough. Enough was enough. I was tired of waking up, with the foggy brain, with, just some other symptoms, depression, anxiety. And I decided I was going to finally do something about it, because I said, I cannot go on like this. So I went to one of our local grocery stores. They had a really good health section. It's not a chain brand, but, they do pride themselves on farm to table. They had a lot of farmers market type things. And so they had a really good, what am I trying to say? Women's supplement section. And I spent over an hour just going through labels, because at that point, I think I did suspect menopause. And again, I was in my early 40s at that time. And I just started picking up products and reading through labels. And I like to go on Amazon to look through the reviews and see how certain things worked, and whether they worked at all for some of these women. And I ended up walking out of the store with one supplement, and I can't tell you how much of a difference that made. I literally couldn't believe in 24 hours how everything just seemed to have turned around. The joint ache seemed to have left. The brain fog seemed to have cleared up. I was thinking sharper, and the depression kind of lifted. I mean, I felt so great just from that one supplement that really fueled my quest to know more and to learn more about what I was dealing with, because I said, wow, if that helped, there's got to be other stuff out there, because I was still dealing with, I was starting to gain a little weight at that point. I was used to being, thin. I'm almost 6 feet tall. I was 5'11 3/4, never quite hit 6 feet. Now I'm 5'10. I shrank a little. But I was always used to being, on the slender side and didn't really have to work for that. At this point, I'd started to pick up a little weight, started to see signs of the little minnow belly that, so many of us women in menopause have learned to live with, and just a lot of things. My workouts weren't as effective. I wasn't losing the weight as quickly. Some days it was just tougher to get out of bed. And like I said, even at work, I wasn't feeling as sharp as I used to. And, that can be a little embarrassing, especially when you got a younger workforce coming in. You're still trying to maintain your competitive edge. And, one of my biggest fears, I used to always say, was to either be perceived as lazy or incompetent. And so it did make me feel like both on some days. I was still able to perform, never had any performance issues on the job, but it really took a lot for me to push through those things. So all that to say, it was a journey, and I understand it. And by the way, before I forget, that one supplement was evening primrose oil. I had never heard of it. And down the road, I discovered other supplements that really helped me out. But that was almost my miracle cure, that I really do believe that, the Lord led me to that day. And to this day, I still take it daily because it still helps me out. Hopefully by the end of this podcast, I'll also be able to give you some simple tools in addition to supplements and things that'll just help you cut through the fog and reclaim your clarity. So let's get into the topic of brain fog. What is it? Well, first of all, it is very common among perimenopausal and menopausal women. You are in good company. 1.3 million women in the United States enter menopause every year on average, and the average age is 51. And you add to that 50 million women who are already in menopause or postmenopause in the U.S. So that's a pretty good quorum of women who are going through the same thing that you are. Most women begin perimenopause around 45 to 47. Again, I think I started a little earlier than that. And also women, if you've had a medical procedure, a lot of times that can also throw you into an even earlier perimenopause cycle, maybe in your 20s. So that's no fun either. But it can last up to 4 to 8 years. And I think that was probably on par with what I had to deal with. So brain fog, let's talk a little bit about that. Basically, if you are experiencing symptoms of forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating and diminished focus, mental fuzziness, it's probably menopausal brain fog. But again, I'm not a medical professional. If anything is of concern, don't assume, don't take chances. Definitely go see your medical provider. And hopefully they will confirm that, or, see if there's something more serious going on. But again, just want to reassure you that this is not a sign of losing intelligence. It's hormonal and it's manageable. And research has shown that the symptoms do get better in postmenopause, which again, I can concur. I think things have definitely gotten better for me. But again, I also take some measures to kind of help that. But yeah, that could make a big difference. Why it happens? Why is this happening? If you just want to take a simple analogy, think of your computer as a brain, your brain as a computer. If the power keeps flickering, it won't run smoothly. And again, hopefully I'm not flickering or buffering today, because I keep getting these little notes popping up that there could be some delay. But really, it deals more with hormonal fluctuations in two main female sex organs, estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is the primary female sex organ responsible for the development and regulation of the female reproductive cycle and secondary sex characteristics. And progesterone is another key female sex hormone, which is crucial for regulating the menstrual cycle and supporting pregnancy. So basically, when those get out of whack, then you start to experience all kinds of anomalies, weird things happening. It can result in sleep disruptions and hot flashes, which can lead to mental fatigue. And so that's probably the case at, even earlier than that in life. If you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to be as sharp as you need to be. Also, stress, nutrition, and lifestyle factors. And so we're going to take a look at each one of these now and just talk a bit about it. So let's look at poor sleep quality. Inadequate or disrupted sleep is one of the biggest contributors to brain fog. Night sweats and insomnia are common in menopause, but they can actually make this even worse. So that doesn't help. Next, chronic stress. Ongoing stress increases cortisol, which is what helps to get that stuff piling up around your midsection. And this can also impair concentration and memory. Also, lack of stress management routines, like, for me, again, prayer was big. Deep breathing, mindfulness. I like to take walks. Sometimes a long drive would help ease my stress a little. But if you don't manage it and, get ahead of it, these things can amplify brain fog symptoms. Unhealthy diet. We are no longer 19. We can't eat like we did when we were younger. A lot of the grease, a lot of the fat, saturated fats, a lot of the sugar. Our bodies just can't process that stuff like it used to. High in processed foods, sugar, and unhealthy fats can negatively impact brain function. That's something that I'm famous for doing. Some days, I get a late start. I may not eat till 7 o'clock that night, and that's not good either. Or not eating enough nutrient-dense foods like leafy greens, lean protein, and healthy fats. Those can also lead to low energy and mental fatigue. Dehydration. Something else that I'm not really good at being consistent with. Not drinking enough water can quickly cause sluggish thinking and poor focus. So lately I've been trying some of these water hydrators, and you really need to be careful with some of those too, because they can, add a lot of sodium to your body, just like Gatorade, drinks like that. They're not always good for you either. Just a little personal tip. I have downloaded an app called Yucca, Yuka. And pretty much everything that I pick up off the shelf in the grocery store, I scan with this app. I love it. It tells you if it's high in sodium. Gives it a rating. It tells you first off whether it's a poor choice, and then it breaks down why it's a poor choice. It'll tell you whether it's sugar, whether it's additives in what you're about to put in your body, and that's helped me out a lot too. So if you want to use that app just to see what some of those hydration additives that you can add to your water, which ones are really good for you, that's definitely going to help you out a lot. But again, I did find a couple that were low in sodium. And I can share that too if you want to know. But I want you guys to get into the habit of just making better choices, when you pick stuff up in the store. So get the Yucca app, scan it, and, really start to better understand what you're putting in your body. Next, lack of physical exercise. I mean, as we get older, we, experience joint pain. We, just get naturally tired. And if you haven't maintained that over the years, it may be hard to get back into a routine of moving your body. I used to be very active and started to experience some lower back issues, some issues with my feet. And so, I stopped running, stopped doing a lot of things. Now, like I said, some days if I can't do anything else, I'm going to get out and I'm going to walk 1.5 to 2 miles a day, or go to the gym, get in the pool, swim a few laps, do some aqua aerobics. Where I work out, we have aqua weights, so I can lift weights in the water without that resistance. I can do squats, which are very friendly on my knees. But really anything that you can do to keep your body moving is going to help out. A sedentary lifestyle actually reduces blood flow to the brain, which can worsen cognitive symptoms. And moderate exercise is proven to boost mental clarity. So I've actually seen people with the stand-up desks. I used to have one of those at one of the companies I worked for, and they'll actually put like a in-place treadmill under the desk, and they're just walking constantly. That's a cool idea and a good way to get some exercise. I know during the pandemic, a lot of us got a little sedentary, because we were working from home, I included, and I packed on a lot of pounds because of that too. But yeah, that's definitely something that's going to keep your brain mentally stimulated. And I know since I've gotten consistent with moving every day and walking, I feel a lot more mentally sharp as well. The next thing is alcohol and caffeine overuse. Excessive alcohol can actually disrupt your sleep and brain function, and too much caffeine can cause jitters, in addition to anxiety and rebound fatigue. This is something that I discovered. Take a sip. It's mushroom coffee. They've got a lot of brands out there. I know it may sound disgusting, but it's actually pretty good with the right creamer. I'm not a black coffee drinker, so I can't drink black mushroom coffee, but I will add a little Ceylon cinnamon to it. And that's not a brand, that's an actual type of cinnamon that's healthier for you than some of the other ones. So it's spelled Ceylon, Ceylon cinnamon. I also like to put some creams in it. And again, this is where I use the Yucca app to find healthy creamers, because that can also add calories and fat. And some of them are just not really healthy because of the additives that are in them. So you may want to be careful with that. So, just try to limit alcohol and caffeine overuse. Also, just multitasking and digital overload. I know that's something else I'm guilty of, and probably my biggest enemy. Drives my husband nuts. I'm always looking at the cell phone right here. I run a small business, so obviously I'm going to be on my phone. Always, just looking at content, trying to see what's going on in this niche, this menopausal niche. And, sometimes I will get caught up in the doom scrolling. But yeah, you want to make sure you're kind of shutting that down at night. Really all the lights in your room. You don't want to have a lot of light, even the smoke detector light, just anything. I recommend a sleep mask. I've been wearing one of those. Excuse me. It's made a big difference. Helps me fall asleep faster. Excuse me. And my sleep is, yeah, a lot more restful. But anyway, definitely shut down those electrical devices, turn the TV off, and just, lay in quiet. Make sure it's dark, make sure it's quiet, and that will also help keep your brain sharp. Neglecting mental wellness in general, just not taking the time for relaxation or social connections or activities that bring joy, can also increase feelings of mental fatigue. I don't know if some of you caught a post that I put out there last week, but actually it might have been this week, where I talked about having come back from, just a mental retreat. Went away with my husband and some family, and just had a really good time at the beach. I didn't focus so much on capturing pictures. I focused on being in the moment. And that's something else that my husband is really teaching me to do, rather than focusing on capturing the memories, focus on just enjoying them. So, I do take a lot of pictures, but I do try to also put that phone down and just enjoy, what's happening. I like spas. I like, going to the steam room in the gym. Swimming is relaxing to me. Walking is relaxing to me. Take that time out, because as I mentioned in my post a few days ago, if you don't, your body will tell you. Your body will let you know on worst case scenario, you're walking along and your body's like, okay, I am worn out. You have, beaten me down to a pulp. I'm just going to lay down. You can keep going. I'm going to lay down. And then there you are, passed out somewhere, or, or worse. I mean, again, we really don't get to, define how that's going to manifest. Worst case scenario, again, you could end up with a stroke. You could end up with, high blood pressure, heart disease. I mean, all of these things kind of come with aging if you're not really watching these things. So definitely watch out for that. Definitely take the time to rest your mind, and just give your mental wellness some attention. And just a quick tip: if you build routines that prioritize sleep, hydration, balanced nutrition, movement, and stress management, it can also make a big difference in reducing the brain fog. So basically, consistency. Try to get to sleep at the same time. Try to make sure you're not waiting till the end of the day, like I do, and guzzling down all this water before you go to bed, because you're going to be up running to the bathroom all night. But try sipping on your water throughout the day. Balanced nutrition. Do I eat fried wings every now and then? Absolutely. Do I have a slice of pizza? Absolutely. I mean, enjoy your life, but do things in moderation. You can't eat a smothered pork chop dinner every night, and expect to feel your best. You got to get some greens in there. You got to get some, brain food. You got to get some fiber, fruit, vegetables, you guys know. Movement. Again, do that. Try to do that at the same time of day. I try to be consistent with mine. After this podcast, I'm going to try and get up there if, sunset hasn't hit. And again, just these little tips for stress management can make a big difference in reducing brain fog. Here's some more practical strategies around that. Lifestyle habits. Again, we talked about sleep, we talked about movement, we talked about nutrition and hydration. And there's also some cognitive tools that you can use to combat mental, sluggishness. Making lists. I've got an app on my phone, a notes app. I'm always looking at notes on there. I've downloaded a planner that I look at all the time. If something comes to mind, I put it in there, and that kind of helps me, with, not letting anything slip through the cracks. Also, planners. There's different apps that can strengthen your brain function, brain games, and chunking tasks, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Also, mind-body practices, like, again, prayer for me, journaling. I've tried it. It's really not, I'm not as consistent as I should be, but I actually find it cathartic. I find it very relaxing when I can settle down and just start writing down my thoughts and how my day was. I like to write letters to God, just let him know my innermost feelings, my innermost thoughts, how my day went. If I observe something, if you're angry, it's a good place to get all that out on paper, because anger's not good either. Sometimes you just have to step away. Anger can raise your blood pressure. Anger can do a lot of damage to you as well. So, just try to, we're all going to get angry. Even the Bible says, be angry and sin not. How do you sin in your anger? By just letting everything loose on someone and saying things that, you have to remember, you can't take it back once it's out. So, you might hurt someone that's really close to you, that you really care about. So you want to, get the reins on that. And then just, breathing, other mindfulness activities that I'm also going to talk about. So let's talk a little bit about, again, just getting back to the sleep piece, because they say, in addition to a calming bedtime routine, and by they, I mean, experts, we should also aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. Now, I personally don't hit that. I'm usually on average 6 to 7, but it works for me. Last night didn't get a whole lot, but again, you push through things, and that's not good. I'm not the example, but I do know what to do, and I do get back on track at times. I'm just being transparent, and I'm just sharing that with you to, just be aware of how much sleep you're getting. Also, try to address night sweats, because again, that can, lead to you having to get up and change clothes or not resting well. You can get breathable bedding. and a cool room. I've got a Tempur-Pedic mattress and I love it. It's, automatically cools down and it automatically adjusts, and I can lift feet and stuff like that. So that's kind of helped me get a good night's sleep as well. And then, as I alluded to before, drinking water throughout the day. They say aim for at least 8 cups, which is about 2 liters a day. Or I think one of the other rules of thumb is half your body weight in ounces. So if you're 200 pounds, shoot for 100 ounces. A lot of people really don't do that. So, you can put flavor additives in your water. I like to put cucumber slices, watermelon slices, help, give your water a nice flavor. Just really any fruit you can put in it. And then sometimes if I just, need to have the taste of something, I may put about this much, maybe a palm juice. I love pomegranate juice. Just whatever natural fruit juice you like, and then fill the rest up with water. And I actually got that tip from a friend who was diabetic, and she used to say that was a way she cut down on her sugar. So limit sugary drinks, and again, alcohol, because that can also dehydrate you. Excuse me. I need some more water. Doing a lot of talking tonight. Okay, next, eat brain-friendly foods. You can focus on whole foods like leafy greens. Again, as I mentioned, fruit, berries, lean proteins, nuts, and seeds. The expression, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice, is also as, foundations in health, because darker berries do tend to have more antioxidants and they are healthier for you. Also include healthy fats like avocado, olive oil, and fatty fish. I have learned to love guacamole. I make it at home, and I do some fun things to it, but I love that. I love avocado toast. Also avoid processed foods and excess sugar. Again, can't stress that enough. That's almost like poison to your body. Again, with regard to moving your body, incorporate regular moderate exercise, again, walking, dancing, swimming. And even 20 to 30 minutes a day can boost mental clarity. I also want to interject another point in here, because I'm working on a book. I'm working on some other materials that I'm going to be making available to everyone on the topic of brain fog and some of the other menopausal topics. But you won't see me reference yoga. You won't hear me talk about it. Yoga is something that I personally just don't engage in. I've learned over the last couple of years it is a religion, which, does have practices that go against my Christian beliefs. So I don't do it. Everything that I, try to present to you is experience-based to a great degree. And so if you're wondering, why you don't hear me mentioning yoga or saying it in a lot of my publications, that's why. So just wanted to put that out there. With regard to managing your stress, again, just take short breaks during the day to reset your mind, in addition to the prayer, the journaling, the deep breathing, the gentle stretching. Just take time out of your day, even if it's just to, if you're still working in an office setting. I've been working from home for about 5 years now. Even if it's just to run downstairs to get a snack, run outside, walk around the building, just step away from your work and, just kind of give your brain a rest. Also limit, with regarding to limiting the alcohol and caffeine, especially close to bedtime. And I know I'm not the best example. I'm drinking the mushroom coffee, but it works a little differently than, full caffeinated coffee. It does give you a little burst of energy, but I've actually had a cup at my bedside and drank it and been able to sleep peacefully, and also had it in the morning and gotten the benefits of the added energy and the mental clarity that it gives me. And, I will say I can tell when I don't drink it. I've been drinking mushroom coffee probably for the last 3 years, and I've tried several different brands. I really think it's up to you, what your favorite brand is. But I have noticed I do, when I haven't had it. And my mother-in-law agrees with me. She says the same thing. I had her on a couple of things, her and my father-in-law, and, I think he said it too. But once you start drinking it, you will notice a little bit of a mental jolt. So, without the jitters. Okay, so Next, let's talk a little bit about just a few bonus tips, okay? With regard to getting back to keeping a journal. You can also track your symptoms, and that's something else I'm working on, a menopause tracker app where you can track your symptoms just to see, what's occurring the most frequently and what you really need to get on top of. You can track your sleep, you can track your food and stress levels just to spot patterns and triggers. Again, I'm a techie girl. I'm not really big on sitting and writing in a journal. I like apps. So there are apps out there. Again, I'm trying to develop my own. So it just keeps you on top of what you're dealing with and helps keep you aware of what's going on with your body. And the more you know, the more you can do about it. Also, if brain fog is severe or persistent, and again, this is a normal menopausal symptom, but you should still be consulting with your healthcare professional because they can actually help rule out other causes and offer support as well. I know I've been very vocal with my doctor, and you should always, be vocal with your doctor. You should never be ashamed to share things with you because trust and believe they've seen and heard worse. There's nothing that you're going to present to them that they haven't seen or heard, and they're there to help you. I personally like, natural holistic cures, but yeah, I don't have a problem with going to my doctor either. And, in some cases have had things prescribed for me. So there's nothing wrong with it. But again, just try some things. That's what I did for a long time. So let's talk a little bit about some of the cognitive tools that I mentioned before with, again, with regard to the some of the productivity apps. There's things out there like Trello. I know I used that when I was in the workforce as a project manager to track tasks. Again, these are things that just keep you organized. Or Google Keep can also help organize tasks. That's not one that I've personally used, but some have found benefit from it. There's nothing wrong with setting reminders and tracking progress. Don't try to overload your brain. I know one of the things that I like to do, like right now, I'm depending on notes. I'm not trying to memorize. I'm not an actress. I'm not trying to memorize an entire script and stress myself out. So, just try to do things that are going to minimize your stress around things. If you need to rely on notes for things, definitely do that. And again, there are apps out there that can help you. With regard to writing down daily tasks, it not only helps declutter your mind, but it also provides you with a sense of accomplishment as you check them off. And, you can have your quick hits, boom, 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 check those off. You may want to tackle the bigger things first. It just really depends, but it is a great sense of accomplishment to be able to check those tasks off and see that you did get something done in the course of a day. Planners, again, physical planners. I use a digital planner, digital calendar. Again, I'm just used to having something online, and I like to have something at my fingertips on my phone. But again, that can help you organize appointments, deadlines, and reminders, or visual schedules. They can also reduce overwhelm, because you know what's going on. You can plan your day around it, and you're not just kind of running by the seat of your pants to get to appointments and things like that. Brain games and mental exercises. This is something I love, and try not to get too caught up in it. I know just coming through your Facebook feed, you see various games, and a lot of them I have to just resist because I know it's really going to be more of a time waster. But there are puzzles and games out there that can actually strengthen your mind. Crosswords, Sudoku, word searches, apps like Luminosity and Elevate help stimulate memory and focus. I like trivia. That's probably my biggest thing. I got like a head full of trivia up here. If I ever managed to get on Jeopardy, I'd probably walk away with the $1 million prize because I just love to collect information. I love to read. I like to, from deep topics like menopause to current events and trends. I like to keep up with everything. I think it's because I just have a nosy trait and tendency. I'm kind of nosy. I want to know what's going on with things. So I think that's something that helps keep my mind stimulated. And again, just, what I do for a living, project management, program management, portfolio management. I'm Used to bringing in a lot of information, used to managing people, used to tracking schedules, used to managing multiple projects. I think that's definitely something that has helped me. And, I try to limit my TV access. Sometimes I can get into doom scrolling like everybody else. It's just amazing what's going on in the world. You start scrolling, you see, a video, and you just, before you know it, 45 minutes have passed. Try to avoid stuff like that, mindless things. But try to learn something. I've been taking a lot of classes in the last couple years, online courses, learning things, this whole foray into podcasting and, just social media, more than just scrolling, but actually, basing a business on it. This is all new to me, but it keeps my mind sharp because I'm constantly, having to do, you wouldn't believe the list that I'm working from today. And then also just learning new skills and hobbies, like learning a new language, playing an instrument, even cooking new recipes to keep your brain active. All of that really makes a difference. Don't be one of those couch potatoes, come home from work, you sit and you just veg out watching TV for 5 to 6 hours before going to bed. That's not going to help. Chunking tasks. Basically, that's dividing big projects into smaller, more manageable tasks. I know when I used to be a developer, I was a software developer for years as well. One of the sayings we used to use was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Chunking kind of does that. It breaks down big tasks into more smaller, more manageable bites. It just helps things not to seem so overwhelming. And it lets you focus on one chunk at a time, just to prevent overwhelm and boost your concentration. There's also a technique, again, I'm just sharing this. This is not, something that I've actually used, but I may, called the Pomodoro technique. And basically that's where you work in short focused bursts, for example, 25 minutes, and then take a 5-minute break. And you repeat this for sustained activity. I would probably get nothing done in a day if I, took breaks every 25 minutes, but maybe every hour, every couple of hours, just get up, maybe stretch, maybe walk in place, maybe, like I said, get a cup of coffee, just something to take a break from that and then go back. Also, sticky notes. I know this is something that I hate. I don't have a lot of sticky notes around my desk because I do have organizational online planners and things like that, but I do have a few. Here's one now. If you need it, grab it. They're good for quick reference, quick reminders, motivational quotes. You could put those around your workspace. Just things to guide you, again, as a Christian. I used to have some motivational cards that I would keep next to my desk, and I've got some now. I need to put those back up again, because those can also be good reminders of, just the bigger picture and just help you to kind of relax and, not take life so seriously all the time. And then next, just routine building. Again, just establishing consistent routines. And I think they say, 40 days to develop a habit. I've heard some say 40, I've heard some say 21. I think it's really more 21. But if you just establish a routine, for me, if I do something for a week at the same time, I start to get into that routine. So that's also going to help eliminate a lot of stress on you from trying to cram everything in. So, just try to experiment with different tools and just find out what fits your lifestyle best. Even small changes like keeping a notepad handy, or again, like I said, just a daily plan or something, just notes. Now getting into mind-body practices. Prayer and meditation, that's big for me. And I know I guess, people have kind of taken that word meditation down another path. I'm referring to Christian-based meditating on the Word of God, period. I'm not, trying to get into some of this other New Age stuff. But regular prayer does offer spiritual grounding. It reduces anxiety, it brings mental peace, and it's just very helpful for clearing mental clutter. Again, that's just my experience. That's worked for me. I don't know what your beliefs are, but again, I pray to one God. the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, who's Jesus, and God the Holy Spirit, who's here inside of me on this earth. And so just help guide me. It brings me a lot of peace. Sometimes I'll even get, solutions to problems I've been trying to work through. So it's, like I said, I would be remiss if I didn't call out just the role that prayer and meditating on, scriptures, just reminding me not only why I'm here, and it is a bigger purpose, it's not just about me, it's about other people, what I'm doing here today. To be honest, this started out really as more of a calling. It wasn't really a passion, because I'm like, that's not really what I want to talk about. When I was just trying to think of, starting another business, an online business, what do I want to talk about? This is not the topic that I initially came up with. This is definitely something God inspired me to do. And just based on the amount of feedback that I get, not only online, I don't see a lot of likes on some of my posts. I don't see a lot of comments. But you would be surprised how many people actually reach out to me offline and, DM me and, just to let me know something I said helped them tremendously. I know this is a very long video or podcast that I'm doing tonight, but there are some of you who will sit and listen to the whole thing and get value from this. So I do appreciate it. But again, just take it for what it's worth. Faith-based meditation, that's my time for quiet reflection, just scripture reading and guided Christian meditations, just sitting and thinking about that, and, sometimes studying. I'm a researcher, so sometimes I will look at multiple translations of a scripture just to see, break down the meaning a little better for me. Sometimes I struggle with the King James Version, just to be honest. But yeah, just meditating on the word of God in that way. Sometimes I'll, look in the concordance just to see, okay, what was the Hebrew or Greek origin of this word? What's a deeper meaning to it? It really helps me center my thoughts and really calm my mind, and just helps me feel closer to God in that regard. So that's just the mindfulness activity that works for me. Breathing exercises. This is actually very helpful as well. I know several years ago, and I shared my testimony as well around my experience with vertigo. That was scary. That was a very scary thing to have to deal with. And I think that was probably one of the biggest menopause, the scariest menopause symptom I think I experienced. It, landed me a ride in an ambulance to the hospital, throwing up all the way. I literally thought I was dying. And, I was able to call 911 and crawl down the stairs because I didn't want them to kick my door down. My husband was out of town. He was probably doing 110 trying to get back to me. And I had a friend across town, same thing. I was able to cryptically text a message, called 911, very sick, help. And, that just set alarms off. But, just helping me to overcome that whole vertigo experience, I would, I saw a therapist, and one of the first things that we talked about was breathing, just helping kind of center you, slow, deep breaths, inhale for 4 seconds, hold that, exhale for 4 seconds. I learned how to breathe because a lot of people don't know how to breathe. If you tell someone to take in a deep breath and inhale, they're going to stop at their chest. You're going to take it. Most of you'll take it, suck in a breath, and your chest will swell up. Ideally, when you take in a deep breath, you're supposed to take that all the way down. Your stomach is supposed to puff out. And you take that breath all the way in and just let it out. And you would be surprised how relaxing that can be after you do that for a few repetitions. And again, I remember doing this when I was going through therapy for vertigo. There's something called box breathing, where you inhale, hold, exhale, and then pause, again, each for 4 counts. And they say this method is easy to remember because it can be done anywhere. And deep breathing was the first thing I talked about, where you're just taking in slow breaths, again, just taking it all the way down to your core and just letting it out slowly. Moving on to the next mindfulness topic. Present moment awareness. Basically, just practice focusing on what you see, hear, and feel in the present moment, whether it's during a walk while eating, or in prayer. And just to give you a personal example, again, this is all experience based. I love to take walks in the late evening. And sometimes I'll get, put my AirPods in and end up, sometimes I've actually been guilty of walking. I'm in the beautiful outdoors. I go to a very beautiful scenic park. There's a huge creek and greenery, but I'll start watching a TV show or I'll start watching a podcast, and I'm not being, aware of the beauty that's around me. That's not being present in the moment. And so sometimes I have to catch myself, and I'll just, take my AirPods out and just, try to enjoy just God's beautiful earth around me. Also guided mindfulness audios. You can listen, to mindfulness recordings. Again, I tend to like to listen to Christian-based motivational speakers. A lot are ministers, full-time ministers in the gospel. Most of them are. Some are just faith-based motivational speakers, but sometimes that'll help me out a lot. If I'm really stressed out, I just need to take a long walk, I'll listen to something meaningful. I'll feed my brain while I'm walking. And that actually helps as well, just to calm down brain fog. And it also awakens just encourages gentle awareness and stress reduction. So again, just something you want to be aware of. Gentle movement. I'm not as active as I used to be. I try to be very active, but I have been diagnosed with arthritis on one of my knees, and actually was diagnosed with a torn meniscus in both knees. So, sometimes I can't do as much as I want to. And I'm also careful to say that's what I was diagnosed with. I don't necessarily always, claim that as truth, but it is fact. Truth says that, by Jesus' stripes, I am healed. Fact says this is what we're seeing on the MRI and the X-ray. But at the same time, you do have to use wisdom, and sometimes you do have to slow it down. Now, again, I was told I had 2 torn meniscuses, but I didn't really, is it meniscuses? Menisci, whatever. I still continued to walk. I took it a little slower. Maybe I didn't walk as far as I did, but I continued to move. I've learned that movement is our best friend as you age. And it actually got better faster. Also, light stretching. That's also big. I used to have a lot of issues with lower back pain. And so, I learned some good stretches that you can do for that. But again, it all helps, again, clear your mind, help you release a lot of that stress and physical tension, and just refreshes your mind. I like to also, stretch in the pool. Sometimes I can do a lot more there than I can when I'm, not there, because you don't have that, have a little brain fog right now. You don't experience that resistance. That's what I'm trying to say. And so I can stretch a little better there. But I've been told by a physical therapist that she's amazed at my range of mobility with the diagnoses I've gotten. But again, that's just faith. That's just using common sense, and just doing practical things, doing what I can. When my joints did hurt, like I said, I may not walk 2 miles. I might walk half a mile. I might walk a quarter of a mile. Do something. I don't care if you walk to the mailbox and back. Just do something. Dance or movement to music. That's something we all like to do too. I'm a Gen Xer, grew up in the 80s, so nobody's expecting you to get out there and do Hammer. But MC Hammer, I get, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, but just do something. It helps. And music is also a great relaxing thing. Sometimes I like to take long drives and just listen to, sometimes gospel, sometimes jazz, sometimes, things that were of comfort to me in the 80s when I grew up. So I like all kinds of music. I just can't get into a lot of this modern stuff. It's unbelievable to me, but I'm aging myself a little bit, so I'm going to move on. Also, creative expression, art, coloring, or music. I know we've seen a surge in sales for adult coloring books. I know people who've done that, and they love it. They find it very relaxing. Again, I think I haven't done it personally, but I do, like I said, occasionally, journal and just writing, that it's very cathartic. It's very relaxing to me. I also like to write fiction on the side. I probably got all kinds of unpublished work sitting on my computer, but I used to just like to engage in creative writing. Even if it's just for a few minutes. I remember there was a time where after work, I just go to Barnes and Noble, Stop at, the little Starbucks that they had in there, maybe get me a cookie, go up to the second floor, stow away in a corner, and just write fiction. And that really did a lot for my mood, my mind, and it just relaxed me. So, just whatever you can do, whatever time you can steal away to do that, take that time to do it. And yeah, just get that mental reset and help with that focus. So try to build these practices into your daily routines. And, after a while, it'll just become second nature to you. Now let's talk a little bit about professional support in the way of supplements. Again, I am not a medical professional. The things that I'm about to share with you, some of the supplements I'm going to talk about, check with your doctor. Don't go on me, or, your body. But again, I'm just telling you what worked for me and what I may have read worked for me. And actually, the list I'm going to share with you is really greatly abbreviated. I've discovered a lot of things, but I'm saving that for the book. So yeah, make sure you listen up for, when I'm going to have that available. But medical options, let's start with that. I'll get into supplements, because supplements is my favorite topic. I love natural holistic cures. But yeah, medical options. Again, talk with your doctor about, what may be available, like HRT, hormone replacement therapy, or non-hormonal supports. I did know a little bit about HRT. One of my sisters had talked to me about that years ago. She had a negative experience with it. I'm very careful about what I, put into my body and let be injected into my body in the form of medicines. I'll do all kinds of research. I've actually had prescriptions that I just flat out did not get filled because I did the research. I looked it up. Something that had been prescribed for me, I can't remember what the condition was, but the top side effect was psychosis. I was like, I called my doctor back. I'm like, and this is when I was still going to work every day. I'm like, and I'm joking about this a little bit, but do you know psychosis? I think of, what was the, Norman Bates in, Psycho, that's knives, stabbing, and you just flipping out and doing a lot of these things that we see people doing on, TikTok nowadays. But I'm like, I've got, one time to go to work and stab somebody and I'm done. That's my career. That's my life. But this was something that, my doctor had actually, a specialist. It wasn't my normal provider, but she had prescribed that for me. And I just flat out refused to take it. And I found some, natural alternatives to it. And I actually found a specialist that got to the root of what my real issue was. And so I'm just glad that I didn't put that into my body. But yeah, make sure you are asking all the questions that you need to ask, because again, I'm sure there have been, advancements in HRT, where it's not the same thing that, the sister I talked to about told me about it. But, just make your decisions accordingly, but definitely do your research. Don't be afraid to get a second opinion, because that's something I don't have a problem with doing either. This is my body. And so, I need to make sure that I'm putting in it what's going to be good for it. So, you need to do that as well. Holistic methods, acupuncture. Tried it. I have tried it. I think I need to try it again. I would like to try it again because the person that I had do it before, I don't think she really did a great job. It was painful. The first few needles she put in were good, but then she put one right in the middle of my forehead. She said it was going to help, reduce tension in your mind. And man, that hurt. I think she just did the technique wrong. So I would be willing to try it again. Different herbs. Again, that's something that I'm also going to be talking about down the road, because there's a lot of herbs that can help, with menopausal symptoms. And really one of my favorite remedies, different teas, different essential oils, things like that can help you. And again, I'm going to be talking about that in another podcast. Also, again, I can't stress this enough, reducing processed foods. Stay away from the I know it's easy, especially when I was in the corporate workplace. I work from home now for myself, but it was nothing for me to, get a bunch of freezer food and come home and pop it in the microwave. Now I try to even avoid the microwave sometimes. I, prefer to use the air fryer. I can't remember the last time I made fries with grease or oil. I put those in the air fryer. They get wonderfully crispy and wonderful. And I do that in moderation, but just be careful, that you're not putting things in that are more harmful. Some oils tend to be more healthy. I can't believe anybody still cooks in, pure lard or anything like that, but olive oil is a good alternative to that. So again, just, things that are going to feed your brain. And actually, olive oil contains omega 3, fatty acids, which are also good for your brain. So let's talk about supplements, my favorite topic, because again, as I mentioned at the top of this podcast, I discovered evening primrose oil, and that was a game changer for me. But some of the more common vitamins that, some people tend to get depleted of are vitamin D, especially vitamin D3. I know that's a supplement that tends to run low in, the African American community. We tend to not put enough of that in. And I've also learned recently that if you take it with vitamin K, your body absorbs it better. So I do take a supplement where it's combined D3 and K2, actually, because I tried to minimize myself. I probably take about 18 supplements a day. So I'm trying to find combos and liquids wherever I can, but that's for another podcast. I'd love to talk about that. Also, B vitamins, B6, B12, folate, different things that help with your energy and cognitive function. Again, just helping keep, those, things firing in your brain the way that they should. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fish oils, flaxseed oil, those can also help support brain health. In addition to magnesium, which can help with sleep, mood, and muscle relaxation. I know if you tend to get leg cramps at night, magnesium helps with that. You could also, get magnesium oil, magnesium creams, and put those on, and they also help work out those kinks. I recently found a magnesium complex product. I know I take B complex, but I'd never heard of magnesium complex. And it just combines multiple types of magnesium in one supplement. I love that. It's got your magnesium citrate, which I believe that's the one that helps with bowel movement. It contains magnesium, something called magnesium malate, which helps, eliminate this bulge around the middle. Magnesium glycinate is also, which is something that is highly recommended for women in menopause. And again, that's for another podcast. Some other herbal options, black cohosh, that's also a big one for helping with hot flashes too. Red clover or ashwagandha, which also helps you wind down at night and relax. But again, only if it's approved by a provider due to possible interaction. So you have to be careful with the ashwagandha. Some non-hormonal prescription supplements, again, that, you may get from your doctor. Again, talk to them about everything. But, sometimes they'll prescribe antidepressants, anti-seizure medications, or other non-hormonal options, which may be prescribed for symptom relief if HRT isn't appropriate. And again, for me, I don't claim depression. God's told me that I overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of my testimony. And, he came that I might have life and have it more abundantly. And so I just try to embody those things. I try to stay away from negativity. I try to speak positive. I don't, use phrases like I was defeated or, I'm beat. You have to really be careful what you speak, because words do have power. The power of life and death is truly in the tongue. And if you find people who are constantly speaking negativity over their lives, they're probably speaking it over your life too. So, I tend to keep kind of a small circle. I like positivity and, people who are going to speak well of me and over me. So just be careful. And I think that's why I can keep such a positive attitude so much, because I do watch the company I keep. I do watch the negativity that comes out of my mouth. My husband also keeps me honest, because we're human. We're always going to be prone to, say things in traffic. I mean, I just had a guy maybe a few weeks ago. Just, I mean, literally, I had to stand up on the brake to avoid from T-boning this man. He looked very elderly, and probably shouldn't have been on the road, but I was hot. I was very upset about that. But, by the time I got home, the first thing I did was forgive. I said, I forgive him. I'm not going to let bitterness take root in me. And unforgiveness will, mess with a lot of things too. But again, another topic for another day. So, yeah, just seek out licensed practitioners for the acupuncture, natural herbs. Again, do the research, or follow Menothrive on Facebook, YouTube here, and trying to build out some things on TikTok as well, and Instagram. So yeah, I'm going to be sharing those types of things as well as we move along. Obviously, nutrition and lifestyle. Again, stay away from those processed foods. I told you I can't emphasize that enough. Strive to fresh fruits. We're still kind of in that summer, late summer point. I love summer because I love cherries. I love summer type fruits. I love watermelon, but I get the seeded kind because I just try to stay away from seedless. To me, that's lab created. I like things with seeds. God created vegetation and fruits with seeds. And so if they're giving you seed, now I'm starting to see seedless lemons. Try to avoid those two. I try to buy organic whenever possible, but it can run a little expensive, so it may not fit with everyone's budget. But if you're getting non-organic, make sure you're washing your fruits and vegetables very well. I've also got some vegetable spray too, but how I like to clean my vegetables is usually, which is like some lemon juice or white vinegar. I'll put that on things and rub it off, but you need to be cleaning it because of pesticides that they spray things with. I know I picked up some cucumbers at the store. I didn't even leave the store with it because they were so heavily coated with wax. It blew my mind. And I've seen people on, TikTok videos pouring boiling hot water over an apple and just, watching all the wax melt off of it. I mean, you're putting that stuff in your body, and it does make a difference in your brain function and how sharp you stay. So, just be cognizant of those types of things. Try to emphasize whole foods, again, leafy greens. Greens and cabbage, we grew up on that. That was a staple. It was wonderful, but it always wasn't prepared as healthy as it could have been. Greens with, you put a lot of fat and pork and things like that. You just took, a really healthy dish and made it not so healthy. But, if that's what floats your boat, wonderful. I like, seasoning mine with smoked turkey. I also discovered a wonderful recipe for cabbage from a gentleman online. He called it the egg roll bowl. Google it. Worth the time, definitely worth the effort, and it's actually pretty simple to make, but my husband loves that. My in-laws love it. Everybody that has tried it, loves it. So that's something I recommend too. Healthy fats, again, avocados, almonds, some of the nut butters. Some nuts are kind of fatty for you, like pecans, cashews, and things like that, but I think almonds are good. Also a good source of food. Walnuts, good brain food as well. Plenty of vegetables, and all of that's good for overall brain function and bodily health. And then last, other integrative therapies. Again, I mentioned I like massage, but I also love chiropractics. I've been getting regular adjustments for the last 20 years, and it's really changed my life. Again, I had a physical therapist look at my x-rays and say, I can't even believe you're the person sitting in front of me, because looking at this, you should be in a wheelchair. And I think that was like the peak of, my lower back issues. And I found this amazing chiropractor who I still see after almost 20 years. He uses a very different technique and to manipulate you. He doesn't touch you. He uses this pokey thing, but it does wonders. I've gotten up off of his table and just been like, wow, felt like 20 years younger. Now I don't even need to go as often because, well, the big thing is I lost a lot of weight, down probably about 45 pounds overall from my heaviest weight, but that makes a huge difference. So he has actually given me prescriptions for massage therapy. And so I was able to get, massages and pay with it with my health spending account. So that's something you may want to look into as well, because massage therapy is a real thing. It does have, not only therapeutic effects, but also mentally and for your physical well-being. And then also faith-based counseling that can also support overall well-being as well. And again, that can be with your pastor or, someone who's, trained in a faith-based curriculum. So, do your due diligence. So, just to wrap things up, this has gone a little longer than I expected to, but it's good, and I expect it to have a little bigger audience. If you do listen to this on the rebroadcast, still feel free to put your comments in there. I will see those, and if there's anything else I can research or clear up for you, I'm definitely happy to do that. But one of the things, we need to do is just practice having a mindset of gratitude. That helps when you can. One of the things that I learned to do at 30, because I used to be very ungrateful, just in life in general. I'm just looking like, this is not the path I wanted my life to take. I mean, I have a very good, good life, blessed and everything, but it just wasn't really what I'd planned to do. It was really the path that God put me on. Just keep in mind, if you pray that prayer, not my will, but thine be done, you just basically gave God license to wreck your whole plan. Sometimes I used to say, I feel like he just walked in on my chessboard and just knocked all the pieces off and said, okay, this is what we're doing. But said all that to say, at 30, I was really ungrateful. And I also used to do lay ministry at my church. And so I had the opportunity to minister to women who were my age. And I remember one day I was just complaining to God. I was just couldn't, had a great job, making good money, just a lot of good things going on, but it just wasn't what I had wanted to happen at that point in my life. And so he allowed me to meet two young ladies in the same day. They were 30 years old too, both had children, but they had very different lives than mine. One literally showed me pictures of what she looked like when her ex-husband had beat her. Her face was swollen so big, it didn't look like she had a human head. And she had actually, ran away from him in the night. So she's, living in fear every day that he's going to find her and her kids. And then there was another young lady who, just kind of had a habit of not making the best choices, not hooking up with the right men. And things were, very different for her life too. So when I got home, I think I ended up spending like 8 hours total with both of them, just listening to their story and ministering to them and praying with them. And all I could do was just give thanks to God for my life, because it really, sometimes you have to know other people's journey to get perspective on your own life. And it really gave me perspective, and it taught me to be grateful for what I had and, the life that I was enabled to live, and the fact that I was alive and healthy and employed and vibrant. And so it just helps. One of the things I like to say today, I hear people saying, I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. I've been there, done that myself. But you know what? Be grateful for Peter. Be grateful that you have a Peter to rob, because some people don't even have that option. Definitely helps with, again, just your whole mental attitude. It all helps. And, again, just speaking on the topic of brain fog, all of that helps. It all helps contribute to a healthy mind. So, we can just acknowledge the frustration that perimenopause and menopause, can make you feel like your body is rewriting the rule book without your permission. But there are cures. If you are experiencing brain fog and mood swings, or, just that sense of I'm not feeling myself, it can be easy to get frustrated and angry at your body for not cooperating the way it used to, or even God. I mean, it can even get that deep, because some of these symptoms can be pretty intense. But hopefully I've shared something today that will help you. Stay thankful. Celebrate small wins. Like I gave the example of having a checklist, just checking off things. that gives you a sense of accomplishment, and that definitely helps. So, even if you got out and took a walk or paused to pray or just simply made it through a tough moment, celebrate that win. Pat yourself on the back. Don't be afraid to do that. Reframe the story. This season doesn't diminish you. It invites you to create new rhythms. Menopause is not a death sentence. As I mentioned before, Haggai 2:9 says God intended for our latter years to be greater than our former years. And I know, we do face a lot of challenges, but it really is perspective, how you choose to look at things. So just keep that in mind. Also, menopause doesn't have to be the end of your vibrancy or your purpose. Again, I'm almost 60 years old and starting a whole new career. Sometimes I wonder, God, why now? Why this? Why now? But I'm grateful that I took this step. And this is actually enjoyable. I like talking to people who, whether you're on live and talking back to me or you're going to look at it later, it just makes me feel a great sense of purpose to know that I may be impacting someone's life. So, again, just look at the whole menopausal season as an invitation just to listen more closely to your body, to honor what you need and explore new ways of thriving. Again, if that means building more rest, trying new creative outlets, connecting with other women, community is very big and very important. Don't isolate yourself. Sometimes that can be the worst thing when you're in a slump. Give yourself grace, not guilt. Celebrate every step forward, no matter how small. And again, just reframe your chapter. So that concludes my very first live podcast. I got through it. I'm still alive. I hope to do many more of these. It's been a blessing just to be able to come before you today. And again, I hope you're able to see this without a lot of buffering. I'm a little concerned about that. So I'm going to work on some things between now and the next one. If you can think of any topics that you want me to cover for some upcoming podcasts, definitely let me know. I've got some ideas, and we'll try to get the promos out there a little sooner so you can have time to plan around it and actually make it. But right now, my goal is every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube and Facebook. So, have a blessed and peaceful evening. And beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. Good night.